Sunday morning at the kitchen table, the 30th of October 2023, and it's a glorious day outside, lovely and sunny. I'd have moved out and did the video outside, only I have no tripod with me to hold my phone up, so I have to do it here. Now I want to read an article here. It's in today's Sunday Business Post, and I have to say, having looked through it, and I don't buy many papers, so they have the 1st of October, it's worth a buy today in my opinion. There's generally good reading in it. Now, it's not totally true, but it's good enough. Now, this is the one here, and I'll read it out to you. Planning bill to slash red tape will actually slow down the process. Okay, planning bill will actually slow down the process. Former Chief Justice Frank Clark. I know of him. He's not a bad judge at all. I would have a good deal of respect for Frank Clark. Claims planning and development bill could lead to lengthy legal delays as cases are referred to the European Court. Okay, he says this will be counterproductive. It'll do the exact opposite. And here is exactly what I have been saying this long time. I'm going to try and read out as much as I can. It's an article by Killian Woods. Government plans to overhaul the planning system by slashing red tape will lead to lengthy legal delays that will scupper new development. Former Chief Justice of Ireland, Frank Clark, has warned. The Planning and Development Bill 2022 is to be published on Tuesday, by the way, contains sweeping reforms to speed up on the Board Pleanála process and to make it more difficult for individuals or groups to object to planning and development. Now, straight away, in anything which is a project, it mightn't matter with a dwelling house or a wall or something, but with anything which is like is a project for big development, the Aarhus Convention, the foundation documents of the EU, all states that the public have a right to be informed when all options are open. That's in the Aarhus Convention, and it's in the Public Participation Directive, it's in the SEA Directive and the ESA and the EIA Directive. Okay, the bill is due to be brought to Cabinet on Tuesday and has been described by Darragh O'Brien, the Housing Minister, as radical. Radical until I get me clutches on it, and we'll see how radical it'll be then. And necessary to modernise the Irish planning system, right? In other words, he's going to overrule European law to beat the likes of me. And I can tell you, Minister, I got a plan to handle you. Right? In a significant intervention, Clark, however, warned that if the government proceeds with proposed reforms, it would be counterproductive. There you are. The Taoiseach Leo Varadkar said last week that it will bring greater clarity and consistency. It will do the reverse, okay? And certainty to how planning decisions are made. No. The planning authority has only a small say in the planning permission for big projects. That's not how the system works at all. The EU law does not expect planners to be able to assess a nuclear power plant or a river basin management or anything like that. They are under serious pressure as it is. There's a system for that, and they're trying to bypass it completely. Clark disputed this at an event on Friday and told attendees that the government's push to amend the planning laws will likely lead to a large number of legal cases being referred to the European courts. They're already being referred to the European courts. My viewers and others helped me to bring one of our cases in, and there's a Swedish and a Dutch case in there, and we have the Friends of the Irish Environment, and we have European Court Case 2419. We have our fence well built at this stage. He said the amendments will slow down the planning process. Now, there's a senior High Court judge. The development will slow down the planning process, which has been criticised by developers. Oh, has it now? Yeah, criticised by developers. Did they ever suggest to the minister, when they're all doing all the lobbying, that he should comply with the law? And then everything could be grand. Government politicians, developers and government politicians, as convoluted and too slow to deal with legal challenges against housing infrastructure projects. Housing is necessary. It's quite easy to do the... Sorry, I had to take a call there in relation to the farm. Just a minor interruption. Okay, so now that's where the pause function comes in good. Now, where was I here? Now, Right. They're talking about housing. It should be easy to do an SEA for housing. It should be easy enough because there isn't the same opposition to building houses as there is for the other junk, wind farms and solar farms and other junk and other batteries and other complete and utter junk, right? Now, so the developers and the politicians are whinging that the present system is too slow, and it's slow because me, a calf and farmer with cows, and another person, perhaps a lawyer, have spotted the complete, and Pat Swords also, my colleague, a Dublin engineer, the complete railroading against the basic laws of the European Union and the Irish Constitution. That is what is happening, and this is the attempt to rail it through. Now, Judge Clark said that based on his experience as a lawyer and judge, moves to tinker with the planning laws can cause 7 to 10 years worth of lack of clarity and legal delays. So they're going to change all the existing precedents that have been set in the Irish courts and try to change them in the European courts to railroad through this. And the only way to handle them is railroad it back up to the European Court, and that's what the Judge Clark is saying. The High Court can be referred to. They may go with us and they may not, but we don't care because all our activities is based on going to the Court of Appeal and to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court. We have them lawyered up, we have them wired up, and we have them lawed up. Now, the thing about it is that here is a judge, a senior judge, agreeing with everything I have said, but not quite itemizing it in as clear a situation, right? So there'll be 7 to 10 years. They're dumping out the existing legal precedent, and they're going to bring in a whole new one. And all of that will be tested, and it'll make millionaires out of the lawyers, which is always what Irish government policy does. If the theory is to make quick decisions to allow proper development to go ahead, creating a system where there will be references to the Court of Justice of the European Union, and and inevitable delay before there's clarity about the law seems to be counterproductive to the purpose intended. I think you can understand that. I'll read that again to you. Where there is reference to the European Court of Justice and the inevitable delay, they can be 2 to 3 years before there's clarity about the law. It seems to be counterproductive to the purpose it is intended. We will see whether this turns out to be right, but I am allowing myself the ability to tell you, I told you so in a few years' time. I told you so as a senior judge. I told you so, he's going to be saying. Think of the corruption of these crowd, and they're going to ignore him. The criticisms come ahead of the government's plan to publish the Planning and Development Bill on Tuesday. That'll be the 3rd of October. Syllable Gobes. Sibylle, Sibylle, Ghors, that's a European name, Gors, a senior lawyer at the European Commission's Directorate General for the Environment, said Ireland really cannot afford to implement a new system that requires another decade of satellite mitigation. This is a senior Commission man who knows about this law. He would have been involved in making this law, I presume. I'll read what he says again. Ireland really cannot afford to implement a new system that requires another decade of satellite mitigation before it breaks down. And that is something we will be watching quite closely. Well, in Brussels, I would say to you, Mr. Gross, I would say to you, take them on. Don't have to leave it to the people like me. You tell them where the law is being broken and take them to the European Court, the same as Derry Bryan Wind Farm. That's what I'd like to see you doing. But even if you don't, we are ready for you guys. We are ready. We're layered up. I'm telling you, I'm deadly serious because they're not going to wreck our environment in any way for housing or anything else without complying with the law. It's easy to do an SEA and strategic environmental assessment for housing. It's simple to do and do it right and let people be. If they had it started when I started campaigning, it'd be all done and dusted. And you can do modifications to it and all of that. We're not against that. I'm not against that at all. Just doing it right. I was involved, I only objected once to a housing estate, and I had a house, and they were putting the backs of the houses out towards me, so that the nappies and the wash would be flickered out in front of me. And I simply made a suggestion that they reverse them around and put the front of the houses out towards the road and out toward me. And after a bit of to and fro, that was agreed, and the estate was built with the front of the houses towards the road and towards other houses. There was a hill at the back of them. That is simple. That's public participation. That's an example of where I objected right now. Gregory Jones, this guy was done a thing in Borplanol, and he wrote a book. He's a Scottish barrister, I think. He wrote a good book on the SCA directive. Gregory Jones, King's Counsel. They have that. It used to be Queen's Counsel, QC. It's now King's Counsel because the King Charles is in. BL, a barrister of planning and environmental law, who chaired the review of An Bord Pleanála in March 2016, also warns the changes would lead to challenges in the European Court. There's another expert, and they're going to face him down. Some of these changes will not speed up the Irish planning system. We will be on a European tour of Geneva, over and back to Europe, getting this straightened, because this is what's going to happen. People are not going to take it. And don't forget, when you take a case, you're only liable for your own costs. You're not liable for the costs of the state. So when we take on Bord Pleanála is going to have to find the money for the big lawyer firms. We'll bleed them dry. Okay? Now, so it will be a European tour of Geneva, Strasbourg, possibly even, and Luxembourg. That's the European Court of Justice. Good work for the lawyers who practice in this way. And I am training up a few good lawyers to be ready. This law was hidden. It wasn't taught in the Irish colleges. It wasn't taught. And they thought that they'd ignore it altogether. But I got the directive and read it. I was at school till I was 12, and I know how to read. Right? Good work for the lawyers who practice in that way. But a depressing thought of delay and adverse impact on the economy. Decisions on developers should be speedily made. Decisions on developments should be reasonably speed made. Good, ordinary, common sense speed, the same as anything else. So on developers, should be speedily made false. Oh, now I want to read that again for you folks. Decisions on developers should be speedily made false. That's a funny kind of a statement. In other words, if developers say black is white, or there's a big hill there, or water runs up that hill, it should be quick to say that's not the case and go back then and get it right. So if they put in a plan and there's something seriously wrong, like putting the back of the houses towards my property or someone else, well then that should be quickly set. And that's what happened in the case of the objection I put in to the housing estate under the Planning and Development Act. They reversed them around. That's what should happen. So it doesn't really say that clear. Decisions on developers, I think he meant developments, should be speedily made false. They must be made fairly, Mr. Jones said. The new Planning and Development Bill is one of the largest new pieces of legislation brought forward in the history of the state. Folks, that's it there on 13 minutes. Now you see where we've cornered them. Now you see, I said in 2010, I didn't know how to deal with the local wind farm, but that won't happen again. Now look where we have them. We have them passing a bill, which a senior judge, a High Court judge, I think he might be even higher than that, because was Chief Justice. Was he in the Supreme? It doesn't matter. He's a very senior judge. And he's retired. And he's told them this won't work. Gregory Jones, King's Counsel, who helped to revamp Bord Pleanála and whom I made a submission to, has told them it's going to do the opposite. And these lugs are going to persist with it and push ahead. They're going to push ahead. It's all illegal. The process is you comply with the Espoo Convention for transboundary consultation. You comply with the Aarhus Convention on public participation, explaining the need for the project, why you're doing it, what it's meant to do. They know the windmills is a cod, and if it's tested, it'll be found to be a cod, a complete scam. And the solar farm's the same. And in many ways, the electric car is the same. But in any event, if they do it with an engineer, that's what they're going to have to face. When the SCA is done, when the strategic assessment is done, and environment reports were prepared, everyone can challenge that in a court and follow it through if there's legal issues. Once that's done, you have your environmental report. You have your piece of paper. And then when you go into the planning authority, whether it be the local council or the planning or the Board Planola, they don't have to deal with shadow flicker, the distance of wind farms, where the houses go, sewage, offal, storm water, where the best places in the country are to be built, where the most advantageous places, where there's less of an impact on archaeology and history and all of that. They don't have to do that. That's all laid out in the environmental report by a good big team, publicly funded by people seconded in there. A big team to do this right for all of these different disciplines, for housing, for river basin management, for energy, for agriculture, for fisheries, for silviculture, for all of that, forestry, all that sort of stuff. All that has to be done. They're listed in Article 3.2 of the directive. Once this is done and passes the thing, all the planners have to do is deal with the finer points under the EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment, the Habitat Assessment, and the Pollution Control Assessment. They have to deal with that locally. Where will that water go? Where will this water go? They don't have to deal with the overarching plan or programme, because that's already dealt with. They want to dump this over. They want to get the Board Planola, which what do you call him, that fella, Sean Kelly, a Fine Gael MEP down in Limerick. He's whinging too that something has to be done about it. He was on the radio the other morning, right? So they want, and he says Board Planola needs a radical overhaul. Board Planola has no authority to rule on an EIA project if it's under the headings of the SEA directive. It sets the framework for the SEA directive, and no amount of overhauling can make it right. No amount of overhauling of the law on serving children in a public house can get over any mistake if there's no license on the premises at all. If there's no license on the premises for selling drink, you can't legislate for that. It's a shebeen. You have to have it, the basics right, okay? The same as on the road. You have to have a driving license, you have to be insured, and you have to be taxed. No amount of laws can get over that. That's the law of the European Union, and we are not going to take it lying down, and many others won't. Of course, we have to gather money. We have to pay lawyers. Lawyers won't make as much as they think, because it's going to be the state that's going to be paying for Board Planola's lawyers and the planning authorities, and the Irish public only have to pay their own share, but it still come to a bit of money. They're saving up, they're getting ready, and it shows you the depth of corruption in Ireland when the government sets out to face down European law after persuading us on 2 occasions to vote yes to the European Union, and that old Gay Mitchell and the rest of them all shouting it was great. They gave us the rights, it was in the paper, they published the Treaty on the Fundamental Rights, they issued all the circulars, everything's there, and what did they do? They come along and they try to introduce more legislation to bypass the whole thing. Okay, folks, I think I have made my point on that. I'll do more on it again, but that's the Sunday Business Post, and this is what they're going to do, and I'll be doing more on that. It just shows you, the neck of them. They're ignoramuses, and the neck of them, and big-headed Ryan above shouting and shouting this bill and do that. We'll soon see. But the trouble I do say, why does the paper not publish what I am saying? Why is there no mention in this of the SEA directive? Why did Judge Clark not say, hold on, for all these projects you have to comply with the SEA directive and the Irish Convention? Oh, what is wrong that nobody will mention this? There's 158 TDs in the Dáil, and I have lobbied a lot of them. I guarantee you, not one of them will mention the fact that all of this must be assessed and is illegal until it isn't. There's cases in Europe that's trapping them down, and the good thing about this bill is we'll delay it even worse. I mean, our case that I collected for is still going on, nearly a year now, and it's all very slow. That's the place to have them. Jam them in. Unfortunately, good, decent development and people who want houses are also caught. We can't differentiate. They should have done it right, they didn't, and now let them take the political and economic consequences. And my task is not to convince you anymore. My task is to see how we can get the message of the compliance with European law out there and explain it to everyone, so that the people doing this, and the ministers, and your man below in Cork, what do you call him, Tim Lombard and Peter Kelly and all these bios, can't come along and pull the wool over the people's eyes anymore. That's it, folks. Goodbye, and thank you very much. I'll see you back soon.